Welcome to the Ages of Rock podcast with your hosts Bill Algie, Dennis Talbot, and Alan Tate. We are three guys who have one thing in common, a love of rock and roll. Our goal is to talk about all things rock. We hope you find this show intriguing, funny, and occasionally highly opinionated. Enjoy!
And I got it. I had to press a little button. And you're back. This is another week. We got another week going here, another show coming up for you guys. This is episode 294. And instead of us just sitting around talking about records and songs and lists and everything, we actually have some guests this week. We have Tom and Joe, and they are from Klassik 78. And
hey guys.
Some people may not know who these guys are. So one of you guys want to explain what Klassik 78 is, if they don't know already?
Sure. Basically, we're a band that makes original music that sounds like 70s Kiss, the same type of vibe, the same type of swagger, just that style that they don't make anymore, that nobody has really made for a long time. It's just something that we're connected to, and something that we're able to do, and people seem to like it. So it's original music that sounds like 70s Kiss, and totally, full disclosure, that's the whole point is to achieve that type of sound, to sound like those records, to make that sound that those guys used to make when they recorded or when they played live. And we've been doing it since 2017, and we released 2 EPs in 2017, and then it's been 4 years since the last EP. And we just released a new album called Phantoms that we released on January 6th. And in that time, in the 4 years, Charlie Bernante from the band Anthrax is the drummer on the new record. And he's been a fan of the band since day one as a listener, always saying kind things on Twitter and Facebook, and sending us nice texts or giving us a call once in a while just to say, hey, I'm really digging this, I'm really digging that. And then that's where we are today. It's been a couple of weeks, the record's out, and it's been a bit of a flurry, which is a great thing because we didn't know how people would respond, but it's been a good couple of weeks.
Well,
go ahead.
No, I said we hadn't talked to you, Tom, you were on here. It's been a couple of years, I guess. You were on here talking about the original EP when you put it out. And I was just flabbergasted when it first came out. And it was just kind of out of the blue. I see some, I was following you guys on Facebook, but it's been quiet, and everything. Then all of a sudden I see you have this new album coming out. I'm like, holy shit, So it took a little bit to get it off there. I finally got it off Amazon. We had some issues trying to get it off of, I think it was iTunes or something like that. It kept messing up. But anyway, I ended up getting it off. It took me a little bit, but I'm bound and determined to get it. So I ended up getting off Amazon. And I'm telling you, I turned it on, and that first song, I'm sitting there, and once again, my jaw just kind of drops a little bit. You get that chill, and I was talking, and as soon as I was texting these guys, going, "Holy shit!" I mean, it's just, and I told them, I said, it's the best Kiss album that's been put out in the last 2 decades, and it's not fucking Kiss.
That's cool.
I mean,
Best,
seriously,
best Kiss album they didn't make.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, that first song, when it first started out, it sounded a little bit like off Paul's solo album, that first, but then it come in, and then, like I said, the vocals it gave me a chill, dude. I'm serious. It was like, that's the fucking Paul I like to hear. That's what I want. I wish Paul could sound like now, but he can't,
That's Joe. Joe wrote that whole acoustic intro.
Wow.
And produced it all himself, and then and obviously that's him singing lead. Joe does all the Paul stuff, and he does a little bit of lead playing on that same song. It's called "Show Me Your Love."
Right.
And he does all the Paul vocals on the whole record. He does a couple low backgrounds on 1 or 2 of the other songs, and just coming out of the gate with that type of intro.
Right.
We've talked about it before. We talked about doing an acoustic intro, for a while. Joe mentioned that's something that we should do. And, I mentioned recently that he could have went with an I Want You intro or Rock Bottom or Black Diamond or Tonight You Belong to Me. And then when he put that together, that whole Paul Stanley 78 vibe, same as like You Got Chills, I Got Chills, and it's just amazing. It's just great way to open the record. And then we pack a punch with this up-tempo Paul tune,
I should have named it Show Me Your Love Gun.
We could have.
Now, Joe, you sang on the first album too, right?
I do.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And,
I remember,
and second. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. No, like I said, it's just you're Paul, like I said, it's so close. It's just ridiculous. I mean, it's just absolutely spot on. And Tom, you do the Gene and the Ace also.
Yeah.
And your Gene is phenomenal. I mean,
thank you.
Now, are you playing the bass also? Or you?
I do. I play the lead guitars. I play the bass. I play, guitar, and I do the Ace vocals and the Gene vocals. And Joe does guitar, acoustic guitar, a little bit of lead on the first song.
Right.
And he does all the Paul vocals, and we both do backing vocals. And Charlie does all the drums. Charlie doesn't sing or anything like that, so he just wanted to really plug into his Peter Criss fandom, and he went to town on it. He when Joe told me if we did another record, we'd probably need another drummer or some guest drummers, and he just told Joe, no, I want to be the guy. I really want to work with you guys, and sent him a couple songs, and I said, which one, if you like one of these two songs, would you like to play on one of them? And then he just said, I want to play on the whole record, whatever you got, send me. So from there on, he's been, full on 100%, setting up mics the way that Eddie Kramer set him up. He's pulling out snare drums from 1973 because it has a certain tone, and, he's just geeking out with his knowledge of, what it takes to get those sounds as a drummer. And he Eddie Kramer produced an Anthrax record in the past, and he picked Eddie's brain, and he still does whenever he bumps into him, about Rock and Roll Over sessions and Love Gun sessions. And so, we went to town. So, when Joe and I get the tracks back, it doesn't sound like Charlie Bernante. It sounds like Peter, which is the whole point of the first record and the second record and this one.
Sure.
Even though it's Charlie doing it, Charlie didn't want to be Charlie. He wanted to tap into the Peter Criss vibes, and that's what this project, is all about for all of us.
Cool. Well, you're going to give him a song on the third record, on the fourth record, or he's going to probably leave, right?
It's going to have to be an instrumental because he won't sing. He won't sing.
No, he has to sing. I mean, you've heard Peter, so it'll tell him it'll be okay.
Yeah.
I'm still convinced Charlie's holding out on us, and he has this Peter Criss whiskey voice, as they call it, just a really nice, but he's just too afraid to show it just, this early on. So
I think he had some traumatic kindergarten, recital issue or some meltdown or something, and just refuses to sing since then, because he's got a little bit of a rasp to his voice, and he's got that Bronx accent, and but we'll see what we can do, Joe. We'll see if we can work on him over the next year.
Yeah, we might have to twist his arm just a little bit to get him.
To get him like a little something Sugar Papa likes kind of thing. You'll get it.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out.
You had a Peter song on the previous albums, right?
On the first one we did.
That's what I'm saying. I remember you had something that was.
Yeah, it's a song we really like too. It's called Mean Business. It's a heavy down and dirty track, but we couldn't find anybody who sounded like Peter. And, Joe took a crack at it. I took a crack at it. And we didn't know if we'd ever do one again. So we wanted to have at least one Peter representation on there. And, it was okay, but it just didn't hit the mark the way we can do the other ones. And so on the second record, didn't even want to try, because the guy's got such a great voice. And so what we've done, which we would do it on all the records anyway, is that we just really hone in on the Peter Criss personality on the drums, and until we find somebody who can do it. And for all we know, Peter's the only guy who can do it. Somebody's out there who can do it, but we don't know who the hell it is. So in the meantime, we make sure that those drums sound 100% Peter, so his personality can shine throughout the whole record.
So if you're a fan listening and you want to get in on this, and you have a great Peter Criss voice, contact us.
Right. You want to scare somebody. You want to be that good where they hear it and where you go, right. Oh my God, that is so close. That's how That's what we're looking for. We're looking for someone to go, holy crap, this guy's got it. Because if you A/B my voice with Ace or Gene's, or if you A/B Joe's with Paul's, you'd notice the differences, because we aren't those guys. But in the context of the songs and the music and the vibe and the swagger of it all, it's very familiar. It's where it gives you those feelings when you're listening to it, which is the whole point of it. And just to get close to that is just it's a cool thing that we're able to do.
You should try to put an ad in the Village Voice or something like that. Maybe you just never know what might appear.
You got that right.
So guys, have you ever played live out with these? I mean, played these songs live?
No, we haven't.
I think that would be okay. So you got Charlie now. You got your drummer.
Yeah. Well, we always talked about it even from the beginning. It just has to be the right scenario.
I just can't believe like the Kiss Cruise hasn't picked you guys up. I mean, everybody knows about you. I mean, not everybody in the world knows about you guys, but anybody who's a Kiss fan knows about Klassik 78. I mean, It's just, everybody knows.
Well, we've heard from people who actually been on the cruise, and they're playing your song over the PA right now, know. But we've heard fans have said that, fans have reached out to Sixth Man about that stuff, and we've never received an invite from them or from Doc McGee or anything like that. And it would need to be the right situation for them and for us. And I'm not sure I'm not sure what the process is, how they select bands or how they go about doing it, but certainly that would make sense just because it's the target audience. And if we did play live, we would play some Kiss tunes, stuff that they wouldn't play, just to pepper up the set and make people happy, or people who aren't familiar with us, they'd appreciate that we did songs that they did now. But
I just think it's a no-brainer as far as especially the Kiss Cruise itself, because it's a diehard situation, and I know everybody on that boat has heard you guys and heard the song, so it's just I thought just figured it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, we would play live. It just it's gonna come from a promoter who's involved with a tour or an event or a festival, or an agent. And that's where it'll come from. And if the situation's right, and it makes sense logistically, we'd be happy to take those calls. So we can play like mother scratchers. There's no issue, kicking the shit out of these songs, live in a rehearsal room or on stage. That's not a question. It just, getting in a van and doing it it's not gonna sustain itself, so it needs to be something that's more stable,
Well, you'd have to do, like I would say conventions, cruises, something that's Kiss, affiliated. I would think
pods, something like a rockin' pod. That would be great.
There you go.
Opening for Anthrax on a tour.
Chris
opening for Anthrax on a. Charlie could play both, right? He can just play.
That's
both.
right.
There you go. Just leave the same drum set up. You just kind of go out there.
There you go.
Knock it out. Yeah.
I keep waiting for Ace and Gene to just do a solo tour together, and then the Talisman just play for like 3 hours.
They'd do it too. They would do
it. Hell yes, they'd do it. There's no question about it.
And I know that we talked about this the last time, but I mean, since that fact, I mean, have you heard anything from Gene, Paul, Ace, Peter? I mean, any of the guys? I mean, not even directly, but let's say indirectly from somebody else.
Joe?
Not since the initial. I don't know if it was side 1 or side 2. It might have been.
I remember
2.
you talking about something. You had some. I guess was it Paul had some rumblings about or said something about it.
Yeah. Paul and I share a mutual friend, Chris Jericho, and Chris told me he was at Paul's house doing an episode of his podcast.
Right. And
after they wrapped up their show, Paul took him over to the Kiss pinball machine, one of the only things he has in his house. And he says, "Have you heard this band Klassik 78? They're pretty wild." And Chris said, "No, I haven't." So Paul actually put on a CD and played it. And just the remarks that he had, was pretty wild. He's, "Oh, listen how much, so-and-so sounds like this, and that's pretty flattering, you know.
It's super
coming from Paul, for sure. But
did Paul say it sounded a lot like Destroyer?
Or did he say, "Damn, I wish I could sound like that today"?
This record sounds just like Destroyer.
Yeah. That's their famous line.
So what? So you guys, like I said, it's been a few years since your first two albums, and A, B, or whatever you want to call them. So, what got started on this? I mean, it was like the COVID thing where you're all sitting around doing nothing, you know, just kind of everybody. The Lock-In has made some great music. It's made some great not really podcasts, but videos. I know with with Kevin Cronin, you know, he was doing these every week. He'd put out something and talk about a song he wrote. And, you know, I was loving that shit. I mean, you're not going to get stuff like that if it wouldn't have been for the lockdown and people not doing anything. So there was a lot of creativity coming out of the mess that we've had over the last 2 years. So
yeah, well, basically, you know, about 2019, I kept writing in 2018, even though I didn't know if we were going to do another one. I knew at that point, I knew right after the second one that if we did it again, we'd need to use, you know, guest drummers or local guys or whatever. But I also didn't want to overload the market because we released 2 albums in such a short period of time. So all of that kind of worked in our favor. I just kind of put it on the burner, but I was still writing songs, and I wasn't ready to get on the train, but I'd still send Joe stuff, and then we bounce it back and forth. And then in 2019, Joe and I were talking more. I kept writing, so I knew I had the songs. We talked about it, and then he ran into Charlie at a show and told Charlie what we were up to, and that's where Charlie told him, "Hey, no guys, let me give it a shot. I want to be your guy," you know. But we kept busy during that period as well because originally this probably would have been out in July of 2020, you know. But since everything happened, everything kind of shifted gears for everybody, of course. But during that time, Joe joined Chris Jericho's Quarantine, or actually Joe's co-founder of that band.
Right.
So he's the lead guitar player in Quarantine, you know. And then they did some videos, and you know, they released 2 singles. You know, Joe, why don't you tell them what you guys did and what order you did it? Because I don't recall actually.
Yeah, well, ironically, you know, so I kind of get the best of both worlds because I do the 70s style Kiss with Tom and Charlie, and then I do the 80s, you know, Bruce Kulick era stuff with Chris Jericho, PJ Farley from Trickster, Kent Slusher, who's the drummer for Luke Bryan, and Charlie Para, who just joined the group as our live secondary guitarist, and he's like got 1 million YouTube subscribers, so he's a YouTuber. But yeah, that's, you know, kind of what we did. We pieced together this, you know, 80s kind of revamped 80s Kiss stuff, you know, the stuff that we enjoy, you know, just kind of deep cuts really, but it's a blast. And but yeah, we kind of formed that whole thing during the lockdown, created a bunch of new friendships throughout that as well. And you know, and another thing we ended up doing was playing on Charlie Bernante's Silver Linings record with 2 Kiss covers, Mr. Speed and All the Way. So if anyone out there hasn't heard those, go check them out.
Cool. I will definitely be checking that out. I just want to jump in here real quick. Usually I have to give Dennis a hard time because he steals my question that he didn't know I was going to ask. And tonight I have to get on to Tom for stealing my question. I was going to ask about quarantine. It's all in fun.
Joe, what was that? Joe, what was the 2 covers you were talking about? You did
Mr. Speed and All the Way.
No, I know that, but it was on Charlie's solo album?
Yep, his solo album, Silver Linings.
Silver.
There's there's a video. So Tom sang the lead vocals on All the Way, as you know, his Gene vocal, and I sang the Paul on the Mr. Speed, and Tom also sang backup vocals.
Cool. I want to check that out.
But yeah, check it out.
I guess
that was a fun project.
Is it on I guess YouTube or Spotify?
YouTube actually has a visual that goes along with it somewhat. Tom wasn't in the visual at the time. He was too busy writing and recording on the Klassik 78 stuff, but he did contribute vocals, thankfully. And but yeah, John 5 joins us on that, and he does some work. So it's John 5, Charlie, PJ Farley, Tom, and myself. But we tried to do it.
People we've never heard of. Just
yeah,
no name. That's awesome.
That's a question. So have you been surprised by that response that you've gotten, that you've kind of connected with all these guys that maybe you hadn't in the past? It's all through the Klassik 78 stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Like some of the guys I was friends with prior. Jericho I met through a mutual friend, the drummer for Luke Bryan. We were writing and recording music, and so it kind of organically grew out of this crazy pandemic situation where every week you would meet someone new through another friend. Hey, so and so wants to record a cover or whatever, and next thing you know, you're playing with John 5 or so it's pretty wild. And I gotta say that just speaks volumes about the Kiss fan base. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, if you have the love for this band, it doesn't discriminate, and it's great.
And that's what you're saying. Like, even like what supposedly John 5 has a bigger collection than almost Gene has. I mean,
he has a museum for sure.
Yes. I mean, big time. And like you said, it's just, it's funny how, what's the word you always said, Bill? It's a Kiss world and we all live in it, or something like that. I mean, it is. I mean, even these stars who are big in their, in their own right, they're still like huge, fanboys of Kiss.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. It's been pretty cool because right out of the gate, they're responding to. They don't know Joe, they don't know me, so they responded to the music.
Right.
It made them feel a certain way. And I think what's good about what we're doing is that you could listen to our stuff, even if you bought the download and you don't have a physical copy. You can look through your Alive 2 booklet and listen to our shit, and you're still going to get the same feeling. You know what I mean?
Right.
We don't want you to think about, obviously we're making that sound. We want you to create those visuals in your brain wherever it takes you. If you're thinking about Gene cutting a vocal in the studio in 78, that's fine. I don't need you to think about. I don't need you to think about Tom, cutting a solo or doing a vocal. So it's pretty cool that we're able to do that, and that's why people respond, because there's a connection to something that they don't get anymore, and they don't get it not because of any bad reason. It's just a band grows for 40 years and they morph into what they become 40 years later. So, it's pretty cool.
And the truth is, like Tom was saying, that not only is it the music that people connect with, but it's almost like the experience. Like on our side 1 and side 2, we included the drop of the needle, the vinyl,
right?
To kind of give that experience. And for the first few releases, we didn't tell anyone who we were. We didn't, just because it was more fun that way. And when we did the physical CD for side 1 and 2, Tom came up with the idea of putting tattoos and stickers and all that fun stuff inside the CD case, so that's pretty wild. It's just a whole experience.
When you met Tom at Atlanta, you were wearing makeup. Remember,
That's
had
right.
you were white face kind of deal.
Yeah, that was me. That was me and Rory, the drummer.
Yeah.
Rory's been one of my closest friends for almost 40 years.
Right.
And we had a blast doing that. And Joe was going to actually was planning on coming to that as well, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. But that was a good time, and we had the CDs made specifically for that weekend.
Oh yeah, I got you one. You gave me one that weekend we were down there. I'm sitting over here.
And that was great, and that's what had the sticker and the tattoo in it.
Yes,
right.
Yeah.
But
so when are you guys having baseball cards made?
Well, the reason why nobody's asked why there's no vinyl or needle on the new record, but it's because we actually will have a vinyl, so you can make your own.
Yes.
Right.
Me and Bill are like, look at it. I'm ready.
Can I pre-order today?
I got a spot.
Yeah, you don't have to pre-order. We're going to definitely do it, and we're not going to sell them until they're in hand. We don't want to hang anybody up with pre-orders or Kickstarter.
Oh, so you're not using Kiss.
You're not going to be like them. You're not going to be like Kiss Online.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, you guys joke about that, but Kiss has been bitten in the ass, I think, twice with the pre-order and the vinyl, and then having to cancel. And I mean, all these other companies, and I'm friends with a guy that works. I think he works for UMG. And everybody that's doing vinyl.
Sure.
And what makes it worse than that is when Taylor Swift decides she's having 2 million vinyl records printed, well,
Yeah.
guess who they're going to give priority?
That's
Sure.
right.
You know, so you guys that are pressing 500 or 1,000 records, they don't give a shit about you.
That's-
Taylor's got 2 million. We're
Mhm.
going there.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And that's why there's nothing available now, because
2 million
this-
shitty albums that I won't listen to. That's for sure.
You know
But
what?
Tom, no,
You're not
it-
their target market, Dennis.
exactly.
And she don't care.
And
As
she
she's
don't
rolling in the dough.
care. She's like going, Dennis, who?
She
I
does
don't
not
care
give a
about
rat's
him.
ass.
Yeah. But it's like
But Tom-
it's like a 6 to 8 month wait. You know?
Wow. And that's crazy.
It's part of it is the demand, which they weren't expecting over the last 2 years.
Right.
And then now it's the demand and the
Product.
PVC, the PVC materials.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's just, and like Alan said, you know, as soon as they're going to take care of the larger labels, and then the independent stuff is going to get bumped down even further. So we don't want to hang anybody up. So we're definitely going to do it. We got CDs being completed right now. Should have them in a week, and we'll make those available for sale in February. And then, you know, hopefully, fingers crossed, you know, in the fall, you know, vinyl with, we're definitely a bonus track and maybe a bonus live track that nobody's heard before.
That'd be
You know?
cool.
So can you get it on? Can you get it on iTunes? Because
Yeah.
I couldn't get it to work either. So
But you got it off Amazon, didn't you?
let him answer.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's in the iTunes store. So it's not on Apple Music. You got to go in the iTunes store.
Gotcha.
Apple tucks that away in like the menu and the preferences,
They
Mhm.
do.
because eventually they want to just go full streaming, you know. But they got such a pushback when they
See,
initially talked
that's-
about that they kept the iTunes store, but they're making you take a few steps to get.
Ah, that's
All right.
helpful. We'll have to put that tag or something on the.
See, that makes sense, Bill, because
Website,
you
'cause
know I'm like
struggled with
you. I even went to the same thing that you did, and every time it would show your name, but it would say it would never show the album to where you could buy it. And I'm like, and I even went through the link that you guys sent, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
They've changed that, and like I said, iTunes.
Mhm.
That's why I went completely away from it. I used to be an iTunes guy, and I just completely went away from it because it was pissing me off. And in Amazon, I got it, but the problem was, whenever I got it, then I couldn't find a damn thing. It took me an hour. Just like I
Yeah,
The
purchased it.
downloads,
It's like, where the fuck is it at? You
but
know,
it's
and I-
there, so everybody needs to buy it.
Yes.
Yeah, Amazon worldwide and iTunes Store worldwide. You can buy
Yeah.
the album download. And you know, fortunately, you know, for us, while from the minute we released that, you know, on the 6th at like 20 minutes of midnight on the East Coast, the thing blew up. And then, you know, Joe's got a teenage son. He was tracking the charts, and we charted for like 3 days as number one on the
Wow.
iTunes chart.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, we're still charting. It's a kind of ridiculous, but it's, you know, it fluctuates. You know, when we did Eddie Trunk's podcast, you know, or Sirius XM, you know, it would go up and then it will drop for a bit. So it's just kind of, you know, it's still hanging on there. It's pretty
Right.
incredible.
Yeah, I saw you were on Joe Polo's that'll get you some hits too.
Yeah.
It'll go up there because that dude, there's all kinds of people listening to that
You know,
thing.
Our 3 listeners will get you. You get a little. You get like a little
You
bump.
beat me to it, Dennis.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, we-
obvious that you guys were like didn't ask how many listeners we had, so that's helpful.
No,
to get
well,
guests on.
we like to check to make sure our equipment's working. This was just a good way to.
Exactly right. Sound check. This is a sound check. Sound
This is a test.
Check 1 2. Check 1
check,
2.
check, testing.
But
2.
no, Tom, I was just trying to talk to. I was going to say earlier about it. It's just the music, and whenever you guys put this together, it's not just the sound. It's not the fact that you guys sound like Paul or sound like Gene or sound like Ace. You know, and the writing of the songs are really, really, really good.
Thank you.
And on top of that, you know, the 70s, you know, in 78, 77, 78 was, you know, that was Kiss's heyday. And you're just giving us more of what we wanted from that era. I mean, it's and that's what makes it so cool. I mean, it's just like we wanted more. We're now getting it.
Yeah,
you-
just don't give us Dynasty
Yeah, don't give us or the Elder.
or the
No.
Elder.
Actually, I
None
would
of
like
that
some
shit.
more Elder, but Bill doesn't
None of that
want it.
shit. None of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to go to Classic 79 to Classic 81 for that. That's not Classic 78
I'm
stuff.
waiting for Classic 82 because I know Charlie can do the Eric Carr stuff on Creatures of the Night.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, we're getting, you know, more rock and roll over, more more of the Love Gun, more of the solo album era. We're getting the songs you guys are writing, and they're perfect. I mean, I really give you guys credit for that, because the Paul songs sound like something Paul would write. Of course, Gene's songs sound like something that Gene would write. I mean,
so Tom is the primary songwriter here. Charlie and I will bounce ideas at him and kind of give him a critique of but ultimately he's pretty incredible. And I like when sometimes people in a Facebook comment will kind of bust on us. Well, the lyrics are a little bit ridiculous. And I'm thinking,
did you listen to a song?
have you heard Rocket? Like Ladies Room? Come on.
Have you never listened to Kiss?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's supposed to be fun, and it's supposed to capture that element that they delivered back then. And so I think it's kind of comical, actually. I'm thinking, what do you want? Mozart? We're not Mozart.
That
have you
to
ever...
me goes back to the people who will say something to you online that they would never say to your face because they don't want you to punch them in the fucking
That's
throat.
right.
You know what's funny? And Joe and I have never talked about this, but from the beginning, 99% of the feedback is positive, and we're just overwhelmed with that. I mean, it's really great. We're having a blast this whole time doing it. And but once in a while you'll get that, this is the they got the energy, but the songs are subpar, or this seems to be a whatever. And then you look at the review for Destroyer, or you look at the review and in the Village Voice for Hotter Than Hell. It's the same friggin' comments, So
it's the same guy. It's the same
probably is, right.
Move on, dude.
It's just like, but it's true. It's like, are you even a fan of the band? Do you even own a Kiss record? I mean, Bang Bang You is not it's not winning any awards.
So
they're never going to make it. I don't know what people are bitching about.
Another plug for Tom. I'm a big advocate of Tom. He's incredible, but his songs that he wrote in the style of Klassik 78 ended up on the A&E biography of Kiss, the official one. And a lot of people don't know that, but Tom actually contributed, I think, 4 songs to that biography.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was a good biography.
That was well done.
The music was the best part, of course.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
Actually, it's funny because of course, I would rather have the whole thing be all Kiss music, just like everybody else, because they did really a great job on that. But what happens is, and I didn't know this, but this was at the beginning. Basically, the music licensing people and the firms that they have to do this, the band has their wish list and the producers have their wish list, but they know it's built into every project that there's certain things that you're not going to get permission for, or certain things that aren't going to be financially, feasible. So they always try to have some backup stuff. And some people on the production team had heard our stuff and said, well, why don't you reach out to one of those guys and see what's going on? And they reached out and they asked me if I had any material, and it was they were saying it's a legitimate, inquiry. Could you please give us a call? Because they wouldn't tell me what it was about, So they talked to me, and then they said, well, don't tell anybody, but it's for the Kiss documentary. And that's, and then they explained to me what's going on. It may never get used, but we need to have plan B, for post-production. And sure enough, they called me one day and said, hey, you got stuff in the movie, and I was like, really? And they were editing up to the last minute, up to broadcast day, that I didn't know what songs made it in the movie until I watched it.
Wow.
I didn't tell anybody, because I didn't want to look like a jackass by saying, I got a couple of songs, and then find out it got edited out, or that there's 2 notes that go ping pong, and then, oh yeah, that was me. So right. I didn't say anything until I knew for sure. Yeah, but I did. I got 4 things in there. I got a thing in there when they go to Electric Lady. As soon as it shows the Electric Lady sign, that's a spot. I got some great spots. I got that. I got when Bogart and Coyne were telling the band, you got to create a stage show. That was a spot. You got, you released Hotter Than Hell and for the first album, but now you need a hit, Rock and Roll Over. I got a tune on that. So I got some, for me as a fan, I was like, oh, I got some key moments in there. The only negative is that you'd rather have all Kiss tunes, But I was just honored that they used it, because really what it means is that Paul and Gene didn't mind, because it wasn't, they could have said, yeah, we don't want that in there, So the fact that they ultimately gave it the thumbs up without any question, that's just another validation of, that you might be doing something right. And we don't bother them. We just they hear about us through the fans, and we've heard great things, but we leave them alone, and I think they probably appreciate that.
So whenever the producers got a hold of you about the thing, did you go on Zoom and go, it'd be $1 billion?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
You think Kiss shit's expensive?
Right. Yeah.
No.
Thanks, Joe, for mentioning that. I appreciate that. But
Yeah, absolutely.
that was one of the things that took place.
No, that's really cool. That's a really cool. I mean, we watch these things, and I don't think I even seen this. I watched part of the second part, and I never finished it. And I got a little frustrated. I mean, it was a good documentary, but I got kind of frustrated with all the, between the Paul or the Peter and the Ace bullshit. Every 5 minutes I had to keep putting that thing up there. Well, they do blah blah. And it's like, oh shit.
Right.
So what were you trying to say there, Tom?
No, I just it was cool. We did that during the break. Another thing that we did during the break is there's this European hard rock band called Lordi. I don't know if you know them. It's kind of like a big, theatrical, monstery type of thing.
You know how Kiss was the Beatles on steroids? Well, Lordi is Kiss on steroids.
Yeah.
It's just, they took it to a whole new level with the costumes and the makeup. And but I think they're from Finland, right, Tom?
Yeah.
Right.
And they reached out, and they were releasing a box set of 7 brand new albums of all brand new songs. Each album had a different style. The first album was like 70s hard rock. The next album was like the British wave of heavy metal. The next one was new wave or whatever, and so on. But the first album was very Kiss, 70s Kiss influence. So they asked if Joe and I would sing backups on it and do our Paul and Gene thing, So that was another thing that just came out, I think, in October. So that was another thing that popped up out of the blue. We didn't know them, but word just gets passed around, and we kept busy while we worked on this thing.
Can I ask a question? And this is something I don't really know. Is there any copyright stuff for voices? Like,
No.
they could never come back and do anything about you guys imitating or sounding like them. Is that correct?
Correct. And the reason what you do is you just got to make sure that you're crediting things properly. So like on the Lordi record, it's Joe McGinnis and Tom Higgins. It's not, left in, it's not left unspoken, or it's not giving people the impression that Gene or Paul are on it. In our case, all the songs are, there's no copyright infringement. There's no trademark logos or anything being misused. The music sounds so much like them, but it's it's original music, original compositions. I don't want those S's on our name or anything. The music is the calling card, and I just want to stay away from all that stuff. So we do this the right way, and people can enjoy it, and it doesn't get tangled up. And even so, Gene and Paul or Ace and Peter or whoever hears it could enjoy it without being offended.
And
Nice.
the other extension of that is the artwork. If you look at the artwork, which was done by Claudio Bergamin, did I say that right, Tom?
Yeah.
We wanted to kind of tip the hat to that era, but we didn't want to, infringe on anything. But we'd have Gene's bass and a Les Paul, a smoking Les Paul, but we didn't want to, go too far and, infringe on makeup or anything like that. And I think that's the best way to approach it, honestly.
Cool. Hey, Bill, to answer your question real quick, though.
Go ahead.
To answer your question real quick, Greta Van Fleet would be in trouble if if that was true. It's like a complete rip off of Led Zeppelin. So anyway, just had to throw that out.
I never thought about that.
Good question, though.
We were talking about it. I was like, well, maybe there's some kind of thing, but I'm glad there's not. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
I mean, if you think about it, there's a lot of bands, especially from the '80s, who took that AC/DC thing, like Kix, and Rhino Bucket and Dirty Looks, and they sounded a lot like AC/DC, vocally and musically. And but it's their own compositions, and they're not
Mhm.
they're not pulling a fast one or playing some sort of shell game. So as long as you're not ripping off the actual verses or the lick for those about to rock, they're fine.
Yeah, about 90% of the '80s bands could be ripping off each other, from the Whiskey a Go Go to the Rainbow to the Troubadour. I mean, I just right down the street. It's like, just heard them. No, that's not them. I just heard them. I think there's plenty of that going on for sure.
Yeah,
that's cool. So, are you guys doing another record anytime soon, or are you thinking about it? I know this just came out, but I mean, are you already starting to think about, hey, what's the next thing look like? And would you do anything with Chris Jericho? Would there be any, anything like that?
Well, I think
I know he's a huge Kiss fan, so that's why I was asking.
Yeah. He likes '70s Kiss as well, but he's definitely flying the flag for the '80s.
Yeah.
But as far as we're concerned, we'd stay in that same wheelhouse that we've been in. The difference being is that because there's still a few directions to go in. But there are songs. Joe's heard about 4 or 5 of them. Charlie's heard about 4 or 5 of them. One of them is a song that Joe got a co-write on this new record because he created that whole intro on the first song, "Show Me Your Love." So we were able to collaborate on that. And then on this next one, there's a song. It may not make the record, but there's a song in the new batch where Joe sent me a tune that he had, and I was able to use his vocal melody and some of his lyrics as a starting point with some music that I had. So we'll work on that together and finish that up. And that's very promising. It's kind of still in that Mr. Speed, Paul 78 solo album type of vibe. It may be the last song we do like that, because who knows how many more records we do, but it's very promising. There's probably 15 songs in total that I have ready for these guys to hear. And we can pick and choose what we want to do. We may do a full album. We may do like a live album with some of the old songs and some new songs that nobody's heard in a live context. And we might do 5 studio tracks on side 4 of it, So we have, different options to take. Doing the live album is a concept that not a concept, but an idea that Joe had brought up after the first record. It'd be cool to create a classic '78 live album with the explosions and the bombs and the audience. And stuff like
because Alive and Alive 2 were.
We know it can be done.
Yeah,
that's right.
I was gonna say,
it will be just as genuine as the original live.
Right.
Alive.
You should go to Cobo. You should go to where Cobo Hall used to be and record the whole thing.
There you go. That's an idea.
Somebody said that to us the other day. That's funny.
So you could loop in the explosions and all that great stuff and really make it sound convincing with the technology, even though we try to, as far as musically, use a lot of the similar equipment, but as far as recording, we can, the possibilities are endless with a live record or whatever we do.
So are you, and maybe you've already mentioned this, are you doing all of the production, pre-post production, everything? You're not sending it off to an engineer to re-engineer it. You're doing all of it.
Yeah, we do it all.
Okay.
Joe's Charlie has a local engineer. He's in the Chicago area. He's got a studio in his house, and he's got an engineer that he uses for his Anthrax stuff. So he used his engineer to cut his drums, and then Joe produces all his vocals and any guitar work that he does. I do the same, and then we did the mixing ourselves. Joe mixed half the music for the record. I mixed the other half, and a friend of mine, John Shipp, mixed the drums with Charlie and I. Basically Charlie's looking for certain things to be prominent and whatnot, and together the three of us mixed the record in that fashion. It just worked out that way, and considering all of that, some of the songs that I mixed sound like Joe mixed them, and some of the songs that Joe mixed sound like mixes that I did, so the tracks are pretty consistent, yet every song's got its own personality and it's still cohesive. So the other thing too I wanted to mention too, and this sometimes when you do these, it's still kind of new to me. And you think about how am I going, what if I run out of stuff to talk about, and then there's so many things, layers to this thing, when you just mentioned it, Bill, about the recording, the production, this was all done digital, but people say, well, you can't get warm tones and, warm sounding records, from digital. You can. It's just, what are you putting down? What are you recording? And people say, oh, this sounds like it's a 70s record. We didn't use 2-inch tape on a 24 track, really, or the kick drum doesn't sound like a clap of thunder, and the guitars don't sound like overdriven razor blades. It's just, it's the mixing. And again, we already have a template that we're trying to approximate. So some of that work is already done for us in terms of the choices, but digital, to me, digital recording, if you record something that sounds shitty, it's going to sound shitty whether it's on tape or whether it's digital. But for us, the editing aspect, or to me, I should say, the editing aspect of the digital is just phenomenal. Because you get an idea, or the riff goes around, 8 times, and then in the final analysis, maybe it should only go around 4. And then instead of slicing a tape and cutting a 2-inch tape and splicing it together like they used to have to do, you can do it with a click of a mouse, and it's and it's there. It doesn't disturb the vibe or anything. It's just it's a nice, easy way to get things where you want them when you have those obstacles. We went too long on that should be trimmed up a little bit. You can do it.
It sounds like too, when you were talking about, as far as like when you were talking about you and Joe mixing it, and they all sounded the same. You guys got the same. You got the same endpoint. You're both looking at the same. You both want it to sound like Kiss 78. So like I said, as long as you guys are on the same track, it's going to sound the same.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with the songs. Like, for instance, guys, there'd be the guitar tones are essentially the same. The drums are essentially the same tones, but sometimes it's the song itself that brings you to 1978, or the riff that makes you think of Watching You. Because it could be a reference from 74 or 76 or 77. It's all under the Klassik 78 banner, but each song's got its own personality. The tempo of the song or the groove of the song takes you to Dress to Kill, even though it's the same guitar tone that's on the song that made you feel like it was a 78 track, So the personality of the songs, and thank you for saying that, Dennis, about the songs, because we feel the same way. We feel that the songs are pretty strong on this record too.
Pretty much.
Cool.
I'm sorry, Bill. What was you going to say?
It's gone. I tried to think of it the entire time, but I was listening to Tom and explain, and I'm like, yeah, this is pretty cool.
I know what it was. All the awesome guitar solos were me. That
was the question. That was the question. Tom, did you do all the awesome guitar solos?
Thank you for asking, Bill. That was me.
So Tom, and this could be for both of you guys, for Tom and Joe. When you start singing these songs, and like I said, Joe, you're going to do a Paul song, and Tom, when you're doing your Gene or an Ace for matter, does it take you a minute to get in your head, to get in that mode? Because I mean, listening to you talk, Joe, I mean, you don't sound like Paul. You know what I'm saying? Paul, when he talks, he's sure. And then all of a sudden, it's almost like you're like a somebody like who can do imitations. I mean, sure. You're just almost have to get into it. You got to get into a different state. Can you do it real quick, or does it take you a little bit to get to that point?
For the most part, it's like flipping a switch. So honestly, whenever I turn on any of my studio gear, that's when it changes. When I know what, and it sounds so stupid and but it's very true. Like if I know what project I'm going to work on, it's like I flip that switch and I instantly know in my head what adjustments I have to make. Sometimes, not being Paul Stanley in 1978, is a kind of a challenge, but, we do our best, try to, like you said, mimic, do the voice, best as we can. Paul had a very heavy, New York accent. Those are things that I kind of just throw in there, but now it's kind of come as like second nature. So at any given time I could do it.
You have to
interesting
work
'cause
really hard to sound like Paul in 2022.
you just gotta go like this, and you gotta. Excuse me. And don't get me wrong, I love Paul. I just hate it for him. I mean, it's sad, but
It's called life, man.
I know it
It's called
is.
life.
It's
It's the way it works.
It's crazy because at the height of in the 80s, I'd say his vocal ability
Oh
was
my
just
gosh, was just
unstoppable. Probably one of the best
unbelievable.
vocalists. I mean, his range was there, his technique, and he definitely showed everyone what he had in those years. The 70s stuff, the vocal styles are interesting how they change so much from the very beginning. Then he kind of goes into that almost operatic kind of vibe,
Sure.
on Crazy Nights. And then, for the reunion tour, it kind of, he didn't really go back. You lose that New York accent and that hunger that you had. And you obviously get older, things change.
Right.
And it just, to see him, struggle, over the past few years, it is disappointing, but I totally get it,
Right.
But that's why we do what we do, to try to, because nothing lasts forever. But if we could try to recreate that vibe, that's what makes it much more special.
I mean, it's good just for you and Tom both. It's just the nuances and just every little. I mean, being a Kiss fan and anybody who listens to this is a Kiss fan. I mean, they're not just going to pick. When you start listening to the way you sing when Tom does the Gene or when you do the Paul, you listen for those little nuances, the accents, the growl that Gene had in that, and like I said, it just makes it special. It really does.
Yeah,
And
I knew
enjoy
Tom.
it.
I knew Tom was the guy that I wanted to work with when we first talked on the phone. In the inception of this whole thing, and he said, a lot of people think Gene is just a growly voice, and you're like, yeah, you're right. Think about it. You throw in some Beatles, you throw in the fact that he's an immigrant and he had a slight, accent. There's a lot of characteristics to Gene's voice back in the 70s that, he kind of dropped after a while, just like Paul's New York accent. But, the fact that Tom was, that much of a Kiss geek like us, that he picked up on these things and kind of knew how to, create that.
I don't think
Exactly.
Gene gets enough credit for his voice, to be honest. I mean, I think he's can the last, especially. I mean, I've been amazed at the end of the road shows where Gene just sounds so good, and I don't think it's because Paul sounds so bad. I just think Gene sounds really, really good.
Gene sounds better than he's ever sounded.
Better. Yeah, I would agree with that. Better than now than before. And I think before, and it may have been before, he was too busy jacking around and
right.
That kind of stuff versus
and all this.
Now he's not doing that as much of that stuff as he used to. So
he's pretty stationary these days.
He's pretty he gets up there and he walks around a little bit, but he's not jumping and dancing and not like he used to do. So
he's 73 years old. Right?
Well, no, I get it, and that's what I'm saying. I think he's
get off
his
my
voice
lawn, damn it.
Yeah, so
and I've always said too, I like Gene's soft voice. When I got the Vault and I started listening to a lot of those demos, Gene's soft voice is my favorite. Which we didn't hear that honestly till we, really till his soul album.
Right.
And started hearing that. I'm like going, damn it, he's got a good voice.
Yeah, See It Tonight is amazing.
Absolutely.
Great tune.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
That is where I was headed.
Yeah, he definitely still has it because actually Joe and I saw him, and was it 2017 or 2018 in Lynn?
I think that might have been 2018. That was a great show.
He was, oh my God, he was hitting the high notes and all these songs that he would go for in 75, and he was doing it. It was really good. Yeah.
That was a great set.
It was really good. He still has his ability. He will never talk about that. He'll never talk about his bass playing. I think it's a shame, only because it's something that we appreciate about the guy. The guy can sing and he can play really great. To play those bass lines and then sing a melody over it that has nothing to do with the bass line, that's you gotta split your brain. It takes somebody with something to be able to separate those two and operate them both.
Exactly.
In parallel,
it's funny whenever somebody posts something like name one of the your favorite bass player or who you think is the best bass player. And if I put Gene Simmons on there, it's because I really think he's a really good bass player.
Mm-hmm.
I think he lays down some
phenomenal,
really good tracks and all that kind of stuff. And I just don't think he ever gets the credit because of all the antics.
That's
and
right.
You know, those guys never get any credit for half the stuff anyway. No. But really, if you listen to the stuff and listen to him in the shows, yeah, he screws the lyrics up every now and then. That's just kind of funny. But his playing is really good.
Yeah, yeah.
And his bass is old school too. He's got an old school bass player. I mean, he's like the old.
Yes.
I mean, big old time. You know, it's not a rock. It's more of a. I can't even think. It's almost like like the Blues Brothers type. That kind of, you know, it's a jumping bass. I always call it.
Yeah, there you go. And you're walking, you're jumping.
Yeah, walking bass. Yeah, walking bass lines. But he fits them in, and they're perfect.
Yeah, he always says that he always says that he's really playing horn lines. So you're right. That's where he's getting it from. He's playing these walking bass lines, and I just love it. You know, when you hear him talk, you know, these days he's doing business, so you're going to hear about Bitcoin and licensing. Those interviews aren't for us. It's for entities out there that may invest in whatever he's talking about. So, but I would love it, and I'm not going to keep you guys, you know, rambling on myself, but I would love it if he did a book with all his basses from his childhood up until the first Axe bass, because I'm sure he's got most of that stuff, and the amps. And I'd like to hear him talk about those basses. I'd like to hear him talk about his bass influences, because it is Led Zeppelin, John Paul Jones and Ronnie Wood from the Jeff Beck Group, and Andy Fraser
Paul
from
McCartney.
Free, and Paul McCartney and Jack Bruce. It's all of those guys. And then there's a bunch of guys that influenced him that we've never heard him talk about. I would love a book like that, you know, just to see those old grabber and ripper basses and those low basses that he had at the beginning. To me, that would be great. To him, he can't be bothered with that. He's got bigger fish to fry in the business world. You know, I'm just assuming that. I don't know the guy, you know, but he's definitely underrated, and he's probably the first guy who won't talk about his skills, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was evident in the I don't remember which it was. I don't remember which thing it was, but the thing where he sat down with Carol. I can't think of her.
Kane.
I can't think of her. Yeah, Carol Kane.
Yes.
And he was talking about what a great bass player she was.
Wrecking Crew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was on the Wrecking Crew. Yeah.
It was on the Wrecking Crew. Yeah.
And just amazing. I mean, she was amazing. She's amazing. But it's like, Gene, this is the stuff you do. We watch it. You know, it's not it's not that different. But he did. But to your point, I mean, but I think that comes from his heritage and his growing up and how he feels about being in America. I think that all has to do with him not wanting to take credit for that stuff. I think that's from his past, and it's pretty cool. So this has really been a very interesting conversation, by the way. We've covered a lot of stuff, but a little bit even philosophical, which just scares the shit out of me. So
I might have to go do something stupid now.
This has been a kind of like intelligent conversation.
So we've been almost an hour. Okay, guys, Tom, Joe, talk about promote. Where can we get your stuff? What's coming up? Let it all out.
You can get.
Go ahead, Tom.
You can get the new Klassik 78 Phantoms album. It's an album download on Amazon and in the iTunes store worldwide, and on both worldwide Amazon, worldwide iTunes. We're going to have a physical CDs available for sale later on in February. We'll let you know when those are on sale. The day they go on sale is the day you can buy it. You don't have to wait. And then we're going to be working on hopefully vinyl for the fall. But any other things that pop up, you go to klassik78.com. That's KLASSIK, the number 7, the number 8. Or you go to Klassik 78 on Facebook. And in the meantime, we'll be promoting this record. Joe's got some quarantine stuff coming up. You know, and you know, we'll just thanks to everybody for checking out the music. Thank you guys for inviting us on.
No,
good to have you.
On. Like I said, I've got the download, and I'm going to wait for the vinyl because I want vinyl.
I have the Amazon download already too.
Yeah, I have the Amazon download, so I listen to it quite a bit, and like I said, I want to put it right there. I'll put it right there in my vinyl.
Awesome. Awesome.
He doesn't open them.
Guys.
He just puts them in.
No, actually, I do. I got one yesterday, but we'll talk about it next week. I did. I went Walmart.
didn't open.
Are any of you guys going to the Creatures Fest in Nashville or no?
We just talked about that today.
I'm thinking about it. It just depends on what's going on that weekend. So,
Right.
Memorial weekend is just not a good weekend. I mean, I want to go, and I don't know.
Are you guys playing? Are you playing?
I'm playing with quarantine, so if any of you guys end
okay.
up showing up,
Well, I guess I'm going to have to go now.
shoot me a line and
cancel all my gigs.
yeah. If anyone does end up showing up, shoot me a message and we'll say hello or whatever in person.
Definitely.
Yeah, because I want to see Bruce's band.
Oh, they're great.
I saw them on the cruise.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, Joe, do you know what day you're playing?
I believe I'm on the 28th. We're playing the 28th. I think that's the day Vinny's playing. So who knows?
Vinny. Okay, I'm going to pull out my billfold and I'm going to put $100 bill down saying that he does not play.
Okay, let me rephrase that. That's the day Vinny is scheduled to play.
As of now.
And here's where it goes off the rails like every show.
There'll be some reason he will not, he skateboarded in the fucking parking lot and broke his arm. He's not going to play. Something's not going to.
I hope he does. I'd like to see him with a group try to do it, but he's just disappointed so many times, and I'm hoping that he could, kind of save some face and really kind of recover
I've seen him plink twice on an acoustic, and that was, of course, down in Atlanta. And then I got the Gene Vault in Nashville. And and he showed up that day, and him and Gene kind of played around. Gene played more guitar than Vinny did, and then Gene had to go start his vault thing, so he's like left Vinny. You just sit here and do this. He was back at his fucking table signing shit as fast as he could get back there. He just put, he was scared shitless, dude. I mean,
unreal.
I don't know. I want to see him play electric guitar. I want to see him play one time. He talks interesting. He talks a big thing, but.
Everyone's saying that it's just as good as it used to be. So I guess we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't.
Well, I saw on video.
I'll go to see Joe and Chris and Tom and anybody else. Bruce.
Yeah.
One of you two ass clowns. meaning my guys. Yeah, my guys. Yeah. But not.
Don't call our guests ass clowns. What the hell?
Not them. I named them by name. When you listen back, I named them by name.
I did. I heard that.
Yeah.
And maybe someday, we'll see the Klassik 78 lineup join something like this, like Tom said earlier. And if so, I'm looking forward to doing that as well, because I love get to scratch that itch of singing like Paul live. I'd have to shave the beard and all that stuff and learn how to dance, but
we might know some people that might be able to know some people that know some people. So
there you go. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much.
25
for coming
people
on.
removed.
We appreciate it. We really
thank
do.
you.
And like I said, the music is fantastic. And anybody listening, if you haven't heard it, download this damn thing and buy their CD when it comes out, because it's fantastic. And the previous one. Do you still sell the previous one to you?
They're available just as downloads.
Just downloads. Okay. Awesome.
Cool.
All right, Mr. Tate. You want to take us out of here?
Out for a minute. I'm going to take us out. Y'all visit agesofrock.com. Check out our past episodes and social media links. And until next time, peace out. Thanks for listening to the Ages of Rock podcast. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and most importantly, tell all your friends. Remember, you're never too old to rock. Until the next episode, peace out, folks.